"Get that dirty old man away from my table." That was the sentence my daughter-in-law said in front of 22 guests, 6 crystal wine glasses, 1 5-year-old boy with frosting on his cheeks, and my son who suddenly forgot how to stand up for the man who raised him. She thought I was a tired old groundskeeper from a bad part of town. By Monday morning, she learned whose name was on her paycheck. My name is Harold Whitaker. I am 69 years old, a widower, a father, a grandfather, and the founder of Whitaker Harbor Hotels, a hospitality group with 14 properties across the Carolinas and Georgia. I did not build it to make cruel people powerful. I built it because my wife Elaine believed every guest deserved dignity and every employee deserved respect. That Saturday evening, I drove my old blue Ford pickup to my son's house in Charleston with a wrapped wooden toy sailboat on the passenger seat. I had carved it myself for my grandson Noah. It was not fancy. It did not come from a boutique. But every curve in that little boat had been shaped by my hands and by love. My son Daniel had told me it would be a small birthday dinner. Just family, he said. Noah wanted Grandpa there, he said. His voice had sounded careful, like a man talking while someone else stood nearby. I heard that kind of caution before, usually from employees afraid to name the person making them miserable. When I rang the doorbell, Camille opened it. Camille Whitaker, my daughter-in-law, wore a cream silk dress, diamond earrings, and the expression of someone finding mud on white carpet. Her eyes moved from my work boots to my pickup in the driveway, then back to my face. She did not say hello. She said, "You came dressed like that." I looked down at my navy jacket and clean gray shirt. It was not a tuxedo, but it was good enough for church funerals and every board meeting where I had ever needed people to listen. "Evening, Camille," I said. "I brought Noah something." She stared at the wrapped box under my arm, then stepped aside just enough for me to enter. The house looked nothing like the quiet home Daniel bought before his promotion. It had become Camille's showroom. White flowers everywhere, gold chargers on the dining table, a hired bartender in the corner, guests in tailored clothes speaking softly about private schools, marina slips, and charity boards. I recognized 3 of them from donor events at my own hotels. Grandpa Noah came running from the living room, his little bow tie crooked, his face bright enough to light the hallway. He crashed into my legs and hugged me tight. For 1 second, I forgot the room, the cold eyes, and the strange tension in my son's house. Then Camille's hand landed on his shoulder and pulled him back. "Noah," she said too sweetly, "remember what Mommy told you. We don't grab people before they wash up." Noah blinked at her. "But it's Grandpa." Her smile hardened. "Exactly. Go play with Carter and Mason." The message was not hidden. To her, I was not family arriving with a gift. I was something that needed sanitizing. Dinner began with polite knives, scraping expensive plates, and ended with my humiliation being served like dessert. Camille had seated me at the far end between a vacant chair and a real estate broker, who spent 15 minutes explaining waterfront tax shelters, as though I had wandered in from a bus stop. Daniel sat near Camille, pale and quiet, looking younger than his 41 years. I tried to catch my son's eye twice. The first time he looked away. The second time Camille touched his wrist and whispered something that made his jaw tighten. I knew then that my son was not just tired. He was trained. Somewhere in his marriage, peace had become a cage, and he had mistaken the locked door for shelter. During the main course, Camille lifted her glass and smiled across the table. "Harold," she said loudly, "Daniel tells people you still do maintenance work." Several guests turned toward me. Her voice carried the bright cruelty of a woman pretending to make conversation. "I think that's admirable at your age. Some people just can't let go of manual labor." "I run a company," I said quietly. Camille laughed and a few guests smiled with permission. "Of course. Your little repair business." She turned to the woman beside her. "Harold fixes gutters, trims, hedges, that sort of thing. Very blue-collar charming." The woman gave me that soft, pitying nod rich people use when they want to feel kind without feeling equal. I could have corrected her. I could have said that Whitaker Harbor Hotels employed over 4,000 people, that her own position as regional events director existed because I approved the division expansion. I could have watched her face drain of color right there beside the roasted salmon. But Noah was in the next room, and I would not turn his birthday into a battlefield. Then Noah slipped away from the children's table and climbed into my lap with cake on his fingers. "Grandpa, can you tell the lighthouse story?" he asked. It was his favorite, a story about a boy who kept the light burning during a storm because he refused to let ships crash in the dark. I put one hand around his small back. Before I could speak, Camille stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. "Noah, get off him." Her voice cracked like a whip. Noah froze. "But I want Grandpa's story." Camille marched around the table, lifted him from my lap, and brushed his jacket as though he had rolled in dirt. "You do not sit on people who smell like a garage." The room went silent. I felt every eye settle on me. I heard Daniel inhale, but he did not move. My grandson's lower lip trembled. I stood slowly, hands open, keeping my voice calm. "Camille, that is enough. It is his birthday." She turned toward the hallway and called security. "Can someone remove this man before he ruins dinner?" There was no security in the house. There was only a valet company outside and a bartender pretending not to hear. But Camille did not need actual guards. The word itself was the weapon. She wanted everyone to see me as an intruder. "He doesn't belong at this table," she said. "Daniel, please tell your father this is embarrassing." My son looked down at his plate. That hurt more than Camille's words. I had held Daniel through fevers, coached his little league team, worked 16-hour days after Elaine died so his college fund stayed untouched. Yet in that room he could not raise his eyes long enough to say, "That is my father." I walked to the foyer with Noah crying behind me. At the door I turned back once. Daniel still stared at the table. Camille stood with her chin lifted, victorious, surrounded by guests, who suddenly found their napkins fascinating. I drove home under a black Charleston sky with the toy sailboat beside me, unopened, unwanted, but not worthless. At a red light I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. Silver beard, weathered skin, clean shirt, tired eyes. Camille had seen an old man with a pickup truck and decided I was beneath her. She had no idea that Monday morning I would walk into the Harbor Crown Hotel downtown, take the private elevator to the executive level, and review her personnel file. I slept 3 hours that night. At 5:30 Monday morning I was already in my office overlooking the marina. The Harbor Crown was our flagship property, a glass and stone tower where tourists paid more for one suite than my father once made in a month. Camille worked there on the 21st floor managing high-end weddings and corporate events. My assistant Ruth Mercer arrived at 6:15 with coffee and concern in equal measure. Ruth was 64, sharp as broken glass, and had been with me 19 years. She knew my moods the way sailors read clouds. "Something happened," she said, placing the cup on my desk. "You're here before the gulls, Harold." "I need Camille Whitaker's full file," I said. "Performance reviews, complaints, emails involving staff, vendor approvals, everything." Quietly. Ruth's face changed. Not surprise. Recognition. "I wondered when that name would reach your desk." I looked up. Meaning Ruth folded her hands. Meaning a few people have tried to make noise about her. Somehow the noise kept getting muffled. By 7:30 I understood why my stomach had been uneasy for months. Camille's division looked polished from the outside and rotten underneath. 4 formal complaints in 14 months. All from older employees, hourly staff, or people with accents Camille considered inconvenient. Every complaint had been softened by her supervisor, Martin Delaney, who described Camille as demanding but effective. There was Gloria Price, 59, banquet captain for 26 years. Camille had called her too slow for luxury clients after Gloria questioned an unsafe setup timeline. There was Ben Alvarez from Maintenance 62, written up after refusing to run personal errands for Camille during work hours. There was Nadine Brooks, a laundry supervisor, mocked for her arthritis during a staff briefing. The 4th complaint made me take off my glasses. It came from Priya Raman, an event coordinator who had suggested a coastal heritage wedding package that later brought the hotel national attention. Camille received the award for that campaign. Priya's complaint said Camille had taken the concept, removed her name, then told her she should be grateful for exposure. I sat there listening to the hotel wake below me, carts rolling, elevators chiming, kitchens warming. The whole building ran because invisible people cared about visible results. Camille had mistaken invisibility for weakness. Worse, she had built a private ladder from other people's backs and called the climb ambition. Daniel called at 8:03. I let it ring twice before answering. "Dad," he said, voice rough, "about Saturday." I waited. Camille was stressed. The dinner was important for her network. I closed my eyes. She called me dirty in front of my grandson. He exhaled. "I know. She shouldn't have said it like that." "Like that?" I asked. "Daniel, she tried to have me removed from your home." His silence told me he knew exactly what had happened and exactly how little he had done. "I should have stepped in," he said finally. "But you know how she gets when things are high pressure." There it was, the old excuse, wearing new shoes. Before hanging up, Daniel said the sentence that sealed my decision. Maybe next time Dad just wears something a little nicer. It would make things easier. I looked out over the marina where the morning sun turned every boat into a blade of light. Easier for whom, I asked. He did not answer. He did not have to. By 9:30, Ruth and I had human resources in my office. The director, Ellen Shaw, looked like someone preparing to walk through a storm without an umbrella. I showed her the complaints, the turnover numbers, and the email chain where Camille joked that banquet staff were walking furniture with time cards. Ellen's face went still. Why was this not escalated, I asked. Ellen swallowed. Martin Delaney said the issues were personality conflicts. Ruth slid another folder across the desk. Martin also approved 3 vendor contracts connected to Camille's college friend at inflated rates. The storm had become a hurricane. Camille was not only cruel, she was comfortable being protected. I did not fire her that morning. That would have been easy, and easy rarely teaches anything. Instead, I created what the memo called an Executive Operations Immersion Program. All managers under internal review would rotate through frontline departments while HR completed a culture audit. Camille's first placement was the dish room under banquet services. Ellen looked nervous when I gave the order. She will file a grievance. Let her, I said. Make sure the rotation is properly documented, paid at her salary, and supervised. She can learn the business she claims to represent. Ruth's mouth twitched not quite a smile. She had known me long enough to recognize when Justice put on a clean shirt. Camille reported to the basement kitchen Tuesday morning in designer flats, a silk blouse and disbelief. I watched from the service corridor in a maintenance jacket and baseball cap, my beard tucked behind a dust mask. At my age, people look through uniforms more than they look at faces. Camille certainly did. This is absurd, she told Gloria Price, who was showing her how to sort plates before loading the industrial washer. I manage 7-figure events. I don't scrape butter off salad forks. Gloria did not blink. Every 7-figure event ends with dirty forks, Mrs. Whitaker. Somebody has always scraped them. Today that somebody is you. For the first hour, Camille acted offended by steam. For the second, she acted offended by water. By lunch, she acted offended by people. She complained about the noise, the aprons, the smell of dish soap, and the fact that no one seemed impressed by her title. Gloria corrected her gently. Nadine handed her gloves. Ben fixed a jammed washer without mentioning her old complaint. I wanted to believe she might see them. Not staff as scenery, not old workers as obstacles, but people. People with bad knees and good jokes. People who knew which bride would panic before the ceremony and which dishwasher belt needed replacing by sound alone. People whose skill kept luxury from collapsing into chaos. Instead, Camille whispered to a young server named Tyler, I cannot believe they expect me to work with these people. Tyler, 24 and still kind enough to be shocked, said, They're good at what they do. Camille laughed under her breath. Good at washing plates, maybe. There's a reason some people stay in basements. I stood behind a rack of linen carts and felt something inside me harden. Saturday had not been a mistake. It had been a revelation. Camille did not humiliate me because she was stressed. She humiliated me because she sorted human beings by usefulness, polish, and proximity to money. I had simply been placed in the wrong box. For 5 days I watched. Camille arrived late twice. She rolled her eyes when Gloria explained sanitation rules. She called Nadine sweetie in that poisonous way that means the opposite. She asked Ben if he had ever considered retiring before the job got too physical. Every sentence was a small cut delivered with manicured precision. At home, Daniel kept texting. Camille says work is punishing her. Camille says someone has a personal vendetta. Camille says you should come to dinner so things feel normal again. I answered each message with fewer words than the last. Finally, I wrote, Ask Camille what she said to Gloria Price today. He did not reply. On Friday afternoon, I entered the kitchen as Harold the maintenance man, not Harold the founder. I carried a clipboard and pretended to check floor drains near the dish station. Camille was speaking to Priya Raman, who had been temporarily assigned to help with banquet inventory. Priya's shoulders were stiff. Camille's smile was thin. You know, Camille said some people are built for support roles. There's no shame in that. Priya looked at her steadily. There is shame in stealing someone's idea. The dish room went quiet enough to hear the steam valves breathe. Camille leaned closer. Careful, Priya. Ambition without protection is a dangerous thing. That was when I knew this was larger than discipline. Camille believed protection mattered more than truth. She believed status could erase evidence. She believed the people she harmed would stay silent because they needed their jobs more than they needed justice. For too long, my company had accidentally proven her right. Monday morning, Ruth called Camille to the executive level. I asked that she be brought through the main lobby past the polished brass, the marble desk, the employees who knew exactly whose portrait hung near the boardroom. I wanted her to feel the distance between the basement and the top floor, then learn how short that distance had always been. When she entered my office, I had my chair turned toward the harbor. Her heels clicked across the wood floor, impatient and uneven. I was told the owner wanted to see me, she said. This better be about ending that ridiculous rotation. I turned slowly. Her face changed in stages: annoyance, confusion, fear, then calculation. Good morning, Camille, I said. She gripped the back of the chair in front of her. How did you get in here? I nodded toward the wall where the framed founding certificate hung beside a photograph of Elaine and me cutting the ribbon in 1991. I used my key. I have had one for 35 years. She stared at the photograph. Her lips parted. No. It came out small, almost childish. You fix things. I do, I said. Hotels mostly. Broken systems. Bad leadership. Rusted pipes when necessary. She sat down without being invited, as though her body understood the truth faster than her pride did. You never told us, she said. At dinner you let me think. I said I ran a company. You decided what kind. I leaned forward. That is what you do, Camille. You decide what people are worth before they finish a sentence. Then you treat them according to the category you invented. Her voice softened. I had seen her use that voice with donors and nervous brides. Harold, this is embarrassing for both of us. Family misunderstandings happen. A misunderstanding is when someone hears the wrong time for dinner, I said. Calling your father-in-law dirty in front of his grandson is not a misunderstanding. It is a choice. She looked toward the door. Daniel doesn't know, does he? Not yet. Hope flickered in her eyes, and I hated that her first instinct was not remorse but strategy. I opened the folder on my desk. Before we discuss Daniel, let's discuss Gloria Price, Ben Alvarez, Nadine Brooks, and Priya Raman. Her face tightened. Those are workplace issues. Correct. That is why we are discussing them at work. I laid out the complaints one by one. The stolen campaign, the age remarks, the personal errands, the vendor contracts, the turnover rate in her department, the way each dismissed complaint traced back to Martin Delaney's protection. Camille folded her arms. Successful women are always called difficult. You are not sitting here because you are difficult, I said. You are sitting here because you are cruel and because you believed cruelty was safer when aimed downward. Her eyes flashed. This is revenge. I shook my head. No. Revenge is emotional. This is documented. Then I played the recording from the kitchen security system audio tied to a safety investigation after Priya reported threats. Camille's own voice filled the office. Ambition without protection is a dangerous thing. She went pale. Not because she regretted saying it, because she regretted being heard. You have two options, I said. You can resign today with a neutral reference that confirms your event experience and nothing more. Or you can remain on paid suspension while the investigation proceeds, including the vendor contracts. If fraud is confirmed, we will involve counsel. Her mouth trembled with anger. You would do that to family. Family, I said, is the word people use when they want mercy without accountability. She stood chair, scraping backward. Daniel will hate you for this. I thought of my son staring at his plate while Noah cried. Daniel may hate the truth at first. That does not make it less true. She chose suspension. Not because it was wiser, but because pride rarely signs resignation papers on the first day consequences arrive. When she left my office, Ruth entered with her notepad, and a look that said she had heard enough through the old oak door. Are you all right? She asked. I looked at Elaine's photograph. Not yet. That evening, Daniel came to my house. Camille must have called him immediately because he arrived with his hair uncombed and his anger rehearsed. Dad, what did you do? He asked from my porch before I could open the door fully. I stepped aside. Come in. You can shout in the kitchen like family. He did not laugh. He paced my small kitchen, the same kitchen where Elaine once taught him to make pancakes shaped like fish. Camille says you're destroying her career because of what happened at Noah's party. What did she say happened? I asked. He stopped. She said things got tense. She said you embarrassed her guests. I poured coffee he did not drink. Did she mention calling me dirty? Daniel looked away. She said she was overwhelmed. Did she mention trying to have me removed? His jaw worked. Dad. One word, tired and pleading. I knew that tone. It meant please stop making me choose between truth and the life I am afraid to lose. I placed the printed complaints on the table. Read them. He stared at the folder as though it might bite him. This is private company information. It is your wife's pattern, I said. And you are my son. You deserve to know what you are defending. He sat slowly and began reading. The first page made him frown. The second made his face lose color. By Priya's statement, his hand covered his mouth. No, he whispered. Camille wouldn't. I said nothing. Men like Daniel, gentlemen, often mistake disbelief for evidence. He needed to finish. When he reached the kitchen transcript, he closed his eyes. She told me everyone at work was jealous, he said. She said older employees resented her success. His voice cracked on success. She said you always look down on her. I almost smiled at the bitter poetry of it. Camille had thrown me out for appearing poor, then accused me of being elitist when I stopped pretending not to notice. She is coming here tonight, Daniel said after a long silence. She insisted we talk together. I looked at the clock. Then we will. Dad, please don't destroy my marriage. The boy in him spoke then, not the husband. I put my hand on his shoulder. I am not the one who brought a hammer into your house, son. Camille arrived 40 minutes later in a black dress, perfect makeup, and panic disguised as dignity. She walked into my kitchen as though entering court, not a widower's home. Daniel stood near the sink. I sat at the table. She did not look at the folder. Smart woman. Guilty people know which objects in a room are dangerous. Harold, she began, I want to apologize for the dinner. I was under pressure and I said things poorly. Poorly, Daniel asked quietly. Camille turned to him with careful eyes. I should have handled your father's behavior more gracefully. My son looked up. Something in his face changed. Not anger yet. Recognition. My father's behavior, he repeated. Camille reached for his hand. He did not take it. Daniel, your father hid who he was. He let me make a mistake. I leaned back. There it was, clean and naked. In Camille's mind, my crime was not being humble. It was being secretly important while she was cruel to me. Daniel said, would you have treated him better if you knew he owned the hotel? Camille looked trapped by the simplicity of the question. Of course I would have shown more respect. The room went still. Daniel's eyes filled not with tears exactly, but with the pain of a man hearing his marriage confess itself. Then it wasn't a mistake, he said. It was a policy. Camille blinked. What he stepped away from the sink. You respect people only after they prove they can hurt you. My father looked harmless, so you humiliated him. Gloria looked replaceable, so you mocked her. Priya looked unprotected, so you stole from her. Camille's face hardened. You were letting him manipulate you. Daniel laughed once without humor. I watched you pull Noah out of his grandfather's lap like he was contaminated. I watched my son cry because I was too weak to speak. Dad didn't manipulate that. I lived it. For the first time, Camille looked frightened. She switched tactics. Tears appeared fast, bright, and perfectly timed. I was trying to build a life for us. For Noah. Do you know how hard it is to fit into those circles? Daniel stared at her. You threw my father out so strangers would think we belonged. I protected our image. From my father. Camille's tears stopped. Look at him, Daniel. Look at this house. This truck. Those clothes. He could have lived differently and chose to make us look small. I felt the words pass through the room like smoke, ugly but clarifying. Daniel looked at my worn cabinets, Elaine's old curtains, the framed photo of Noah on the refrigerator. My father paid for my college, Daniel said softly. He paid Mom's medical bills. He helped us with the down payment on our first house, and you told people your parents did it. Camille flinched. I had not known that part. Daniel continued, voice breaking open. He never made us look small. You did. Camille grabbed her purse. This is exactly what he wanted. He wanted to turn you against me. I stood then. No, Camille. I wanted you to learn the value of people you considered beneath you. You refused. That is not my victory. That is your failure. She looked between us, searching for a crack. Daniel gave her none. Go home, he said. I need to think. Daniel. No, he said louder. For once, no. You don't get to manage this room. Camille recoiled as if the word had slapped her. Then she looked at me with hatred polished smooth. This family will regret humiliating me. I opened the door. You have confused consequences with humiliation again. After she left, Daniel sat at my kitchen table and cried. Not loudly, not theatrically. He folded forward like a man whose bones had finally admitted exhaustion. I sat beside him and placed one hand on his back. He said I'm sorry over and over until the words lost shape. I did not tell him it was all right. It was not all right. Forgiveness is not a broom that sweeps broken glass under the rug. I told him I loved him. I told him he had work to do. I told him Noah needed to see his father choose courage while courage still had a chance to become normal. The investigation took 7 weeks. Martin Delaney resigned before the vendor review became official. Camille's friend returned part of the overbilling through counsel, which told me more than any confession. Priya's name was restored to the Coastal Heritage Campaign, and the Industry Award Committee received corrected authorship. Gloria Price was promoted to Banquet Operations Trainer. Camille resigned through a lawyer. Her letter cited a hostile environment, unfair targeting, and irreconcilable professional differences. Not one sentence mentioned Priya, Gloria, Ben, Nadine, Noah, Daniel, or me. Some people can stare into a mirror and still accuse the glass of lying. Daniel filed for separation 2 months after the birthday dinner. I did not celebrate. A family breaking is never a parade, even when the break lets light into rooms that have been dark too long. Camille moved to Atlanta to work for a boutique planning firm. I heard later that she told people Charleston was too small for her talent. Noah asked where his mother went. Daniel called me before answering him, his voice shaking. What do I say, he asked. The truth small enough for a 5-year-old, I told him. Tell him grown-ups made choices and now everyone is learning how to be kinder and safer. Daniel was quiet. Do you think that's true for some of us, I said. Spring came soft that year. Noah and I took the wooden sailboat to the marina and set it in the water with a string tied to the mast. He named it the Lighthouse. I almost cried when he said it. Children remember stories differently than adults. They do not always keep the plot, but they keep the light. One Saturday, Daniel brought Noah to the hotel for lunch. Not the formal dining room, not the rooftop restaurant, but the employee cafeteria. Gloria made Noah grilled cheese. Priya showed him the event model she was designing. Ben let him hold a safe plastic wrench near a service panel. Noah looked at everyone with serious respect. On the way out, he pointed to the framed photo of Elaine and me in the lobby. Grandpa, is that Grandma? I nodded. Yes, buddy. He studied her face. Daddy says she built hotels with you. I smiled. She built the best parts. Noah thought about that. Did she like everybody? She tried, I said. That is harder than it sounds. By summer, Whitaker Harbor hotels had changed in ways I should have demanded sooner. Anonymous complaints now went directly to an independent ethics officer. Exit interviews were reviewed monthly. Promotions required peer feedback from hourly staff, not just executives. Managers spent 2 paid days each year working beside frontline teams, not as punishment but as education. The scholarship fund began with Maria Santos from housekeeping, whose granddaughter wanted nursing school. Then Ben's nephew applied for technical college. Gloria cried when her grandson received money for culinary training. I named the fund after Elaine because she always believed hospitality began with how we treated the people behind the doors guests never opened. My relationship with Daniel healed slowly, like a dock repaired plank by plank after a storm. Some boards had to be removed entirely. Some only needed stronger nails. He apologized when he meant it not, when guilt cornered him. I listened when I could. We both learned that love without truth becomes performance. One evening, Noah fell asleep on my couch after asking for the lighthouse story 3 times. Daniel stood in the doorway watching him, hands in his pockets. He feels safe here, he said. I looked at my grandson, one sock half off, mouth open, toy sailboat tucked under his arm. That's the point of family, I said. Daniel nodded. I forgot that. No, I said. You were taught to fear losing peace. He looked at me then, older and more honest than he had been in years. I think I called fear peace because it was quieter. That sentence stayed with me. It was the kind of truth a man earns by bleeding privately. A year after that terrible dinner, the Harbor Crown hosted an employee appreciation night in the ballroom Camille once ruled like a throne room. This time the speeches came from the people who made the hotel breathe. Gloria spoke about training young staff. Priya unveiled a mentorship program. Nadine laughed while accepting an award for 20 years of service. I took the stage last. The room quieted, but not because they feared me. That difference mattered. I looked at the faces in front of me, young, old, accented, tired, proud, brilliant in ways no resume could measure. I thought of Camille calling people basement workers. I thought of my grandson watching adults decide who mattered. When my wife and I opened our first inn, I told them we had 12 rooms, 1 broken ice machine, and more hope than money. Elaine told me something I have never forgotten. She said a place is only as elegant as the way it treats the person no guest remembers to thank. The room went very still. I looked at Gloria, Priya, Ben, Nadine, Ruth, and the hundreds who kept our company alive. Somewhere along the way I allowed polish to hide rot. That was my failure. Tonight is not about pretending it never happened. It is about making sure it cannot happen quietly again. Then I stepped back and let the applause belong to them. After the event, Noah ran across the ballroom and grabbed my hand. He was 6 now, taller, missing 1 front tooth, and full of urgent questions. "Grandpa, Daddy says you're powerful." I laughed softly. "Does he?" Noah nodded. "Are you powerful because you own the hotel?" I crouched until we were eye to eye. "No," I said. "Owning things is not the real kind of power." He frowned, working that over. "Then what is?" Across the room, Daniel watched us with a small smile. I thought about the birthday dinner, the basement dish room, the office confrontation, the broken marriage, and the people who found their voices afterward. Real power, I told Noah, is being able to hurt someone and choosing not to. It is being able to help someone and choosing yes. He considered this with the solemnity of a judge. Then he held up his toy sailboat and said, "So power is keeping the light on." My chest tightened. "Exactly, buddy. That is exactly what it is." I still drive the old blue Ford pickup. I still wear work boots when I feel like it. My house still has Elaine's curtains, old cabinets, and a porch light. Noah worries about when storms come. Camille would still call it unimpressive. That no longer concerns me. A thing does not lose value because the wrong person cannot recognize it. Sometimes people ask if I regret not revealing myself at the dinner table. I do not. Had Camille learned my title before revealing her character, she would have bowed to the title and hidden the character. I needed to know the truth. Daniel needed to see it. My company needed to face it. Most of all, Noah needed adults brave enough to stop pretending cruelty was manners. I did not demote my daughter-in-law because she insulted me. I placed her where her beliefs would meet the people they harmed. I gave her a chance to learn what dignity looks like when it wears gloves, carries trays, folds sheets, and scrapes plates after rich people go home. She looked at dignity and still saw beneath her. That was the real tragedy. Not that Camille lost a job. Not that Daniel's marriage ended. The tragedy was that she stood surrounded by teachers and chose to remain ignorant. Consequences can open a door, but no one can force another person to walk through it. Some people would rather live outside the truth than enter humbled. As for me, I sleep better now. Not because revenge was served, but because order was restored in the places where I had power to restore it. My grandson knows his grandfather belongs at his table. My son is learning to speak before silence becomes surrender. My employees know the top floor is no longer too far away to hear the basement. Elaine used to say that every building has a hidden structure. Guests see chandeliers, flowers, polished floors, and ocean views. Builders know what really holds the weight. Beams, bolts, foundations. Families are the same. Companies too. When the hidden structure cracks, you can decorate all you want, but eventually the roof tells the truth. That night at Noah's birthday, Camille thought she was showing me my place. In a way, she was. My place was not at the far end of a table begging for respect from people impressed by silk and silver. My place was wherever someone needed the light kept on. For my son, for my grandson, for every worker she thought nobody could see. And if you ask me what I would do if it happened again, I know my answer. I would stand up sooner. I would listen harder to the quiet complaints. I would remember that cruelty often enters wearing perfume credentials and perfect manners. Then I would do what I should have done from the beginning. I would protect the people who still believe decency matters. I would open the door to truth even if it lets in a storm. And when the storm passes, I would check the lighthouse, trim the wick, and keep the flame alive. Because power that only punishes leaves ashes. Power that protects leaves a legacy.